which characters in One Piece have official heights that drastically contradict their portrayal in the anime and manga? As we all know, the physical proportions of characters in One Piece are incredibly diverse, especially when it comes to height, which spans an immense spectrum. Of course, for the sake of compositional harmony in the manga and anime, many characters aren't actually drawn to their established heights. So, just how significant are these discrepancies? Let's start with the sniper of the Blackbeard pirates, Van Augur. Looking at him alone, or more specifically just his face, no one would ever guess how tall he truly is. However, Van Augur's official height is 3.40 meters, 11 feet 2 inches, making him significantly taller than even the Marine Admirals. This means a 2.98 meter, 9 foot 9 inch Aokiji would barely reach Van Augur's shoulder, a far cry from the impression of similar height given in the anime. Yet for someone like Aokiji, who is already a towering figure to the average person, he's actually the shortest among the original core members of the Blackbeard pirates. The 5 founding members are all over 3.40 meters tall, and the crewmates recruited later from Impel Down are each taller than the last. This is why, during the Summit War, when the Blackbeard pirates and the red-haired pirates faced off, a closer look reveals that the red-haired pirates are practically dwarfed by the Blackbeard's crew. So when a 1.99 meter, 6 foot 6 inch Shanks stands next to a 3.44 meter, 11 foot 3 inch Blackbeard, he probably need to carry Luffy on his shoulders just to be taller. Of course, height doesn't equate to strength, but you have to admit, the Blackbeard's pirates lineup of towering behemoths is genuinely terrifying. Now, take a guess. How tall was Gol D Roger? Across many panels, Roger appears to be of relatively normal height in the pirate world. After all, Rayleigh is a 1.88 meters, 6 foot 2 inches, and the height difference between them never seems that great. However, Roger's actual height is a staggering 2.74 meters, 9 foot 0 inches, making him nearly a full meter taller than Rayleigh. In reality, Rayleigh would probably only come up to Roger's chest, but drawing them that way would look incredibly awkward. That's why, in both the anime and manga, Rayleigh is consistently depicted as being roughly the same height as his captain. Similarly, when Whitebeard and Roger sat down to have a drink together, their statures didn't look all that different. But in reality, with Roger at 2.74 meters and Whitebeard at 6.66 meters, 21 foot 10 inch, the comparison would be like an adult standing next to a 3-year-old child. Kozuki Oden is 3.82 meters, 12 foot 6 inches, even taller than Blackbeard. It's undeniable that Oden was an immense and powerful man. Lady Toki, at 1.90 meters, 6 foot 3 inches, looked incredibly small beside him. This is why, if Roger wanted to put his arm around Oden's shoulders, Oden would typically have to be sitting down while Roger stood up. In this panel, Jozu was only a teenager and already nearly as tall as Oden, still in his growth phase. He would later grow to a final height of 5.03 meters, 16 foot 6 inches. His frame is much larger than we imagine, yet he possesses incredible speed. Thinking back, it's no wonder he was able to send both Crocodile and Aokiji flying and coughing up blood during the war. Next up is a case I find particularly absurd, Foxy's height. Believe it or not, he's 1.80 meters, 5 foot 11 inches. With that body shape and those proportions, he's the same height as Sanji, a man whose long legs seem to fill the entire frame. This just proves that height isn't everything. What truly matters are body proportions. Sometimes the paneling itself can be misleading. Robin is 1.88 meters, 6 foot 2 inches, yet Foxy is shown to be a whole head shorter than Robin. According to their official stats, the gap shouldn't be nearly that large. It makes you wonder if Foxy's height includes that wild hairstyle of his. Looking at a scene from one of the films where a 1.74 meter, 5 foot 8.5 inch Luffy is present, it seems very likely that his hair was indeed part of the measurement. In Impel Down, when Buggy and Luffy fought side by side, Buggy appeared to be about the same height. In truth, Buggy is 1.92 meters, 6 foot 3.5 inches, making him 1 centimeter taller than the pirate empress Boa Hancock. Luffy standing next to Buggy should create the same sense of height difference as when he stands next to Hancock. But perhaps because Buggy is always drawn in a comedic style, no one ever registers that he's actually that tall. And what about Mr. 2, Bon Clay? At a glance, you'd guess he's around 1.9 meters, 2 meters at most, since he never seemed that much taller than the Straw Hats. But his actual height is 2.38 meters, 7 foot 10 inches. In our minds, Beepo is an adorable, somewhat goofy pet, but his cuteness often makes us overlook his sheer size. Beepo is 2.40 meters, 7 foot 10.5 inches. He is, in fact, a massive, upright polar bear, far larger than any normal person. No wonder Law loves to lean on him like a cushion. He's basically a super comfortable mobile sofa. And considering Law is 1.91 meters, 6 foot 3 inches, you can only imagine how over the top it would look for a 2.40 meter Beepo to leap up and hug him. The cheerful conversations between Ace and Yamato tend to mask the cute height difference between them. The over-the-shoulder shots used in their fight scenes can be very misleading. In reality, a 2.63 meter, 8 foot 8 inch Yamato walking down the street with a 1.85 meter, 6 foot 1 Ace would look like an older sister walking her little brother. Yamato's physique is already enormous compared to an average person, with a height nearly on par with the Marine Admirals. Among the Beast Pirates, excluding the giants from the numbers, Queen at 6.12 meters, 20 foot 1 inch, and King at 6.13 meters, 20 foot 1.5 inch are similarly tall. But Kaido at 7.10 meters, 23 foot 3.5 inches, isn't the tallest. That title belongs to Jack the Drought, who stands at 8.30 meters, 27 foot 3 inches, towering over even Black Maria, 8.20 meters. So if you rank Kaido and his all-stars by hierarchy, it looks like this. But if you rank them by height, it should look like this. No wonder Jack dared to brazenly sail up to a group of powerful veterans who are all under 3 meters tall. Of course, these aren't even the most illogical examples. The most baffling case has to be the old man Heradas on the Sky Island with Area, who doesn't even reach Nami's shoulder, and yet his official height is listed at 2.53 meters, 8 foot 3.5 inches. Is this a mistake? Or was this number just pulled out of thin air? He barely comes up to Nami's shoulder. It wasn't until I saw a later cover story that it clicked. My God, it seems these old men have the ability to shrink and grow at will. Old man Hoyle, who recovered from being 1 meter tall to over 2 meters, would probably look at this and exclaim, "Now that's a professional." In conclusion, these seemingly absurd height proportions can be seen as a characteristic feature of One Piece's unique art style. A discrepancy between the visual depiction and the official data is almost unavoidable. Otherwise, in any given scene, the giants would be too gigantic and the smaller characters too tiny, which would look very strange. Ultimately, these extraordinary heights are more of a conceptual element of the One Piece world than a strict visual rule.